Hey everyone, what's up? My name is Boz and welcome to VGM Together Beatboxing 101. It's gonna be rad. We're going to pretty much go through the basics of how I approach beatboxing, and we'll have some cool video game music examples along the way. Who's having fun at VGM Together, right? Like, this event has been absolutely monumental. Like, huge shout outs to everyone who participated in putting it together in the big collab last night. It's just been great feels and amazing execution across the board. So, gotta shout out to the team first. But I have a good amount of stuff to go through. So I'm probably gonna go a little fast. If you have questions, feel free to hit me up in the VGM Together Discord. You can just @Boz in the panel's discussion channel. And I'll be happy to follow up on any questions at that point. And maybe if we get through everything, I'll have some time at the end as well. Let's start with a little bit of an introduction. So my name, I go by Boz on Twitch, but my actual name is Bijal. I was in a competitive a cappella group at Northeastern University from 2010 to 2015. I was their beatboxer for that whole time. We competed a lot. We recorded a lot of albums. We won the International Championship of Collegiate a cappella in 2013, where I received an award for outstanding vocal percussion. And we've won a few recording awards as well for the albums we put out together. And I've done a good amount of coaching of vocal percussion, beatboxing stuff, both in one-on-one scenarios. I trained not the current beatboxer of the Nor'easters, but the guy who just graduated. I trained him. I've trained a couple other people. And then I also teach group courses at scholastic a cappella festivals for high schoolers or college students and stuff like that. So a couple things that are a little tricky about this format is obviously this is just a one-way thing. I can't really hear you. So it's a little hard to give feedback to that, individualized feedback and stuff like that. Also, I like to write things down on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper. I've kind of replicated that to an extent with my notes over here. And then also you can see underneath me, I've got a couple of images / diagrams that we might dig into in a little bit. Hey everyone in chat, good to see you all. Let's kick it off with some basic sounds. The three primary groups that I'm gonna be focusing on are kicks / bass drum. I will refer to them as kicks. Then hi-hats and snares. Those are kind of the three percussive elements that I think are, the most important for approaching beatboxing the way that I do it. So let's start with a simple kick drum. What up, MKV? So basically what we're going to do for this is we're going to take the letter B and we are going to focus on the consonant sound of it and less on the vowel sounds that come from it. So for example, if we were to take the word boom, right? Boom, 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 right? And we take the out of it, you get something like right? And that by itself may not necessarily sound like a kick drum, but that is essentially the motion that you will be making in order to make that sound, right? Sonic boom. So, basically you're scrunching up your lips and then you are expelling air through them forcefully. So that is pretty much the simple way of doing it. Let's try it together. So it's literally just the letter B. So 1, 2, 3, and Nice. Nice. Now, you might have gotten tired after doing it a bunch of times in a row. It maybe didn't sound as much of like the punchy like that you wanted from it, but that is the motion. So playing around with that, getting familiar with it, you'll learn how to do it without aspirating as much, focusing more on your lip muscles. And yes, drum ultima, that's what I like to hear. You can cover your mouth if you want to, but spitting is a good thing. It cuts down a little bit as you get a little more proficient, but it's a little gross, but it is what it is. One of the reasons I highly recommend people brush their teeth before beatboxing or doing extended practice sessions. You definitely don't want to have any food in your mouth or like gunk or anything else. So that is the simplest kick. And then so a lot of problems, or a fairly common problem that people have when first learning this sound is like, okay, I get the letter B, take out the E, but it doesn't really sound low enough, right? It doesn't really sound like that bassy kick drum, right? So one thing that you can do to lower that and start thinking about how to lower it is thinking about kind of your instrument, your apparatus. So your mouth and your neck and your chest, your vocal cords, all of the things you use to produce noise kind of contribute to how high, low, and the vowel shape that come out with the sound that you make, right? So for example, let's say if you're like humming, or let's take an M, an extended M sounds like that can be like, if you're agreeing with someone, if someone says something that you kind of agree with, you might be like But if someone says something you don't like so much, you might be like right? It's the same sound, but it's the difference between and right? So that high lowness kind of happens from, let me whip out my diagram here. So this is like the inside of your mouth. Maybe I'll draw something in here. And then like the back of your mouth, and then lower, and then through into your chest. Those are kind of the areas that you set like naturally to hum lower. When you like when you growl, right? You are already like doing what it takes. And then if you go through those same motions, but instead of humming, you do the kick sound, it can be the difference between and, right? It's not a huge difference, but little things like that, practicing little things like that, it helps. So the reason why I bring up humming as well is because you could even go so far as to add an M to the end of this B sound that we've been doing, right? So instead of, you've got a like a short one. Try that with me. 1, 2, 3. Nice. You feel me? So that hum is the same thing as right? You can pitch it differently. So you could do right? It is much harder, indeed. And it takes more, you actually need to aspirate it more because you're humming. So there's air expelling like through your nose in this case, and I guess your mouth. But so that will take more stamina, and it takes practice, but we'll kind of get to ways that you can practice these sounds. The simplest way is just, do them a lot. Try doing them with music, try doing them in time. But there are some easy ways to make sounds that take a lot of stamina a little bit more manageable. And we'll hopefully have enough time to get to that. Another example of a aspirated / pitched sound that you can add to the letter B for a kick is V. So what sound does the letter V make? V, v, v. So I'm actually making a pitch. If you extend a V sound, you will make a pitch the same way that you hum. So that can be an effective tool for, switching up your kicks. You could just go, or you could go, or you could go, they all have different use cases. They all achieve kind of different effects. And they all kind of take different amounts of stamina. So Those are just kind of options for different types of kick drums that you can do. My phone is buzzing. Yeah, it might be. I actually wanted to use my phone. Thank you, Shins. Good call. I'm going to use my phone to demonstrate another part of the mouth shape. So the lowering and raising of the pitch that you're humming kind of comes from your vocal cords and your chest cavity and how open the back of your mouth is, right? But basically the whole inside of your mouth, let me ruin this with some illustrations by myself, but just bear with me here. So if this is your mouth, right? It goes like this, then your uvula's like back there, and then it goes down to your throat, right? Your tongue would be somewhere around, your tongue would be like here, your uvula would be here. So basically, when you change the shape of this, and especially the lips, right? The opening from which the sound comes out. When you change those shapes, you modify the pitch of what is coming out, right? And familiarizing yourself with that concept is really nice, mezzo. That makes me really happy to hear. It's a really useful tool for being able to conceptualize how you can, make these sounds different. And one really easy way to start thinking in that pattern is a lot of us have smartphones, right? Shout outs to Mr. Hanakoma. If you have a smartphone, more than likely it's got a speaker that is isolated to a single point on your phone, right? So I'm going to play some Persona music here, right? Let's see, if I look around, where's my speaker? Oh, okay, I can feel a vibration here. Okay, cool. When I cover that up, I can tell that's what it is, right? Cool. So I know where the speaker on my iPhone is down here in the corner. It shoots out down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this phone up to my mouth in the corner, and I'm going to try to shoot that sound into my mouth. And then if I change my mouth shape, you will hear what happens. And this is something you can try at home. It's a little gross, but you can just wipe your phone off after. Or not. So, okay, where's the speaker? Here it is. Okay. So I'm going to shoot that into my mouth. Hey, what's your favorite MMORPG? It's actually Final Fantasy 14, but so yeah, you can do that with any song, any sound source. It's really easy on phones because it shoots it in a very specific, like it's coming out of the speaker at this angle. You put that in the corner of your mouth, play around with the mouth shape. That will kind of show you, how you can warp sounds. We'll kind of get into it a little bit more, but like even if you're just like going whoosh, right? Little things like that. Helps to think about things in that way a little bit. Okay, so we're going to move on from kick drums now. We're going to start talking about hi-hats. So this one is another very simple letter, another consonant sound. The letter T. I'm aspirating that a lot, but it's got the t and then the t, 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 t. Try to take the breathing out of it. Yeah, it's hard to do if you're humming. You still do breathe out a little bit, but try to make it less like ta, more t, 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 right? Cool. So that is a closed hi-hat. Maybe I should kind of explain a hi-hat. A lot of you probably know this, but for those of you who don't, if you're looking at a drum kit, right, the kick drum is the big round one in the center. They call it a kick drum because you step down on a pedal and then a hammer kicks the drum, and then it like That's how the sound gets made. Hi-hats are the two like smaller cymbals that face each other and open and close. People usually play like fast rhythms on them and stuff. But yeah, so a closed hi-hat will make the t, t, t sound, which is just the letter T, right? If you wanted a more open hi-hat sound, so you can take the letter S, make it as long or as short as you want, and add it to the end of that T, right? So shortest hi-hat, slightly longer hi-hat, really long hi-hat, right? It's just adding a little bit of an S to it, adds a little bit of flavor to it. Hi-hats are really fun. Functionally, I guess we'll get to it a little bit later, but they are not as crucial, I would say, as the kick and snare when it comes to the like rhythmic identity of a beat. But they are still like a great opportunity for, finesse and flavor and tastiness and, all sorts of great stuff. And so T and TS are kind of your common ones. Let's try that together real quick. So we'll go together. All right. So 1, 2, 3. Nice. All of you who just tried that, you have like most of the tools you need to beatbox already, which is pretty sweet. You got your p and you got your t, right? It's pretty great. That is pretty great. One thing that I will say is even though the letter K doesn't sound like a hi-hat as much, like that doesn't really sound like a hi-hat. But if you are trying to do fast hi-hats, I find that alternating between the T sound and the K sound is a good way to achieve speed. For example, and we will break down actual beats in a little bit, but something like is a lot easier. The is a lot easier than right? So if I just tried to go I can't really go that fast. But if I do something like, it's a lot easier to switch. Like it's easier on your tongue. There's less movement in your muscles to go from a T sound to a K sound to a T sound because the K sound is lighter, right? It's less demanding. So switching between them is really useful for when you're going for speed. Hey, what up, K Shove? Actually, that's going to be a thing in a bit. But anyway, so that's my little breakdown of some options for snares. You've got your right? Stuff like that. So yeah, those are simple approaches to a hi-hat sound and a kick sound. I think I said snare by accident. We have not done snares yet. We're about to. Let's talk about some snares. The probably easiest one. Oh wow, I'm trying to click. I was trying to click into my notes, but I was clicking into OBS like a fool. So the easiest snare, I think, is the letter K. So similar exercise we've been doing. We've been taking consonant sounds like B and T. Now we're going to take K. Try to make it unaspirated as much as possible. So not like ka, but like k, 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 k. I'll talk about some ways you can play with this sound, but let's just try the sound together. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice job, fam. Nice job. If y'all just tried that at home, you more than likely have mastered 3 rhythmic elements, the kicks, the hi-hats, and the snare. obviously not mastered, but to a functional extent, if you could make those 3 sounds, you have the tools, and we're going to put them together into a beat in just a sec. But first, we're going to talk a little bit more about ways you can other sounds you can use for the snare. And also I should mention the snare drum is the one kind of in the middle of the kit. It's the loud one. It's the one that sounds like, right? It's, I would argue, and again, we'll get to this a little bit more later, but I would argue this is the most important sound in the drum kit for playing with a group or for jamming or for the rhythmic identity for beats. I think the snare is super important. Oftentimes it's associated with the clap, when people clap with sounds and with music. And so it's an important set of sounds, but we're going to break down a slightly different one. I'm actually going to change the order here. Let's talk about KH before we talk about KL. Shout outs to Kingdom Hearts. So the same way, I know this is going to sound a little hypocritical, but you know how we tried to take the aspiration, the breathing out from the consonant sounds, like the k, k, k. We try to make it as dry and unaspirated as possible. Now we're going to actually try to add a little bit of the H sound. So, or just like when you make the sound, try to slow it down and keep breathing out through the consonant sound. So like, here's a bad example. Excuse me. Right? Oh my God, that even takes a lot out of me. But you don't have to do it for a long time, right? If you do a shorter, like, that is a useful tool. Again, it will take more out of you than a, but you can do more with it. If we play with the mouth shapes, the same way we did with our cell phones, if we play with the mouth shapes on the, because there's a constant flow of air going out of it, you will hear the difference. So like, is different than, which is different than, right? Right? So again, for now, especially for beginners, just the simple is more than enough to get started. But for people who are trying to, work on it more in the future, or for people who maybe have a little more experience, that's a cool way to play with that. Now we are going to talk about a slightly more complex sound. This one is a little tougher to wrap your head around, but this sound is just so useful for me that I have to tell you about it. If I didn't, it would be very rude. So the sound, what it's going to sound like is, right? How we get there is a bit of a process, okay? And this is going to sound kind of whack, but I promise it works in terms of conceptualizing it and being able to get there. So, okay, how many of y'all know about finger guns? Hey. Right? You know about that cheesy thing? Right? So that sound, to make that sound, you typically will use like the corner of your mouth. Maybe I should draw something here. It's not going to be pretty because I didn't get a front-facing mouth. But if this is a mouth, then the area that I'm talking about to make the sound is, for finger guns, is usually one side right on the corner of your mouth. For me, it's right there, right? However, you could probably imagine making that sound from the opposite side. Probably wouldn't feel as natural, but you could probably do it, right? Like just conceptualize that. Maybe try it. It's hard. It's hard for me. But just imagining. And then try switching between the two. Right? So you're playing around with here, then here, then here, then here. You're alternating your finger guns on the side of your mouth. So finger guns, back and forth, finger guns, sound, back and forth. And then now the reason why we start there, it actually does not have much to do with the sound itself. However, doing that exercise will familiarize yourself with the part of your mouth that is required for this sound. The very back of your tongue is very relevant. That's where the sound takes place, but the corners of your mouth are important for how the sound gets its like clicky quality to it, right? Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to imagine how you would make finger guns out of both sides at the same time. I don't know if this is possible, but that is what you're going to conceptualize. So let me actually add that to my little notes here. By the way, I would highly recommend taking notes. It's just a good habit to get in for mouth drums in general. We're going to get into a notation / shorthand thing in a bit, but conceptualize doing finger guns out of both sides at once. Use this area to click minus ick. So the third step is you're basically saying click, 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 while trying to get things out of those two sides of your mouth. And then eventually you will get it to be like, try to isolate that K sound and shoot it through the two sides that we just came up with. And then that's how you'll get that. Now, you might be thinking, boss, come on, man, that sounds not that special. Why would I jump through all these crazy hoops to land at that sound? Well, the same way that is easier than the is even easier. So when you are going through fast things, it's a really easy way to get a really fast snare out when you're, doing like agility in like a complicated pattern, right? And actual singers and like horn players might be able to, describe the things that I'm talking about a little bit better. I never studied, I did study like singing for a time, but I never studied a percussive instrument or formally studied like mouth shapes or like embouchure. I don't even know what that really means, but all these horn players can probably understand a lot of this stuff on a higher level than I can. But I'll try to break it down in ways that even people with no musical experience can latch onto. So that's the sound. Right? Okay. Last snare that we're going to talk about is the best snare in the world, and it's so easy. It's so easy. So this is the snare that kind of sounds like the actual drum. So we're going to talk about why this is such an effective snare sound first. So if you ever have had to tell a big crowd or a small child to be quiet and they're already making noise, but you need to get the be quiet message out over them, an effective tool that a lot of us are familiar with is shh, shh, excuse me, shh, 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 right? So shushing is really effective because it's like high frequency. It goes over most talking noises and stuff and vocalized like speech. So shushing is really effective. Similarly, a snare drum has that higher pitch frequency, and so it cuts through most of the sound, and that's why it's such an important rhythmic element of beats. And especially if you're jamming with someone else, your snares are oftentimes what the group is listening to, or at least what they can hear best, right? So anyway, if we're gonna take that shh 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 sound, right, we're gonna put the letter P in front of it. Psh, psh. So p plus shh right? Let's try that one together. We'll go a little slow. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now that one can take a lot out of you, especially at first, right? But if you shorten that shush or make it a quieter shush, you'll achieve a similar snare effect without needing to expunge as much air. You can also, once you get a little more familiar with it, you can put a little bit of F in that mouth shape. So what I mean by that is if I went that's the mouth shape I make. If I did PF, it would. But if I go somewhere in a happy middle between the sh and the mouth shape, then you can get a snare that sounds like. And that's where it's at. That's a snare that just is so punchy, comes through really clearly, and it doesn't even take that much out of you, again, once you get used to it. I will say a lot of this is heavily dependent on mouth muscles, face muscles, familiarity with like your chest register, and then also your diaphragm. These are all important things. If any of these things start to hurt when you're training, you want to cool it for a little bit, or maybe just in general try to train a little lighter. But I mean, hurting means that you're growing the muscles, so that's a good thing. Zen actually has a pretty cool inward snare that's pretty punchy as well that I just cannot do for the life of me. But anyway, so those are kind of your basic sounds, right? Let's recap, because we've kind of been going a little hard on these sounds. We haven't heard lots of music from video games yet. It's kind of been a little technical, but we're about to dive into some stuff. So let's just do a quick review before we do. You don't need to remember everything we just talked about. Let's just talk about the simplest sounds. Simplest kick drum is the letter B. The simplest hi-hat is the letter T. The simplest snare is the letter K. Right? Those are kind of the three sounds. If that's all you have at this point, we are good to proceed. And I think we should. So real quick, obviously there are lots of other sounds in the universe. I am not really a solo beatboxer or like a lot of people, and obviously mad respect to all those people. There is a big scene of solo beatboxers who do like really cool sounds, really out there sounds and stuff like that. That's never really been what I wanted out of beatboxing. I've kind of wanted to use it as a tool for like jamming and understanding percussion. And, obviously I was in an a cappella group. So, the functional percussion of that. And so I don't really know a ton of like, oh snap, can you do the throat buzz and like all these like, oh, can you do the scratching and all these things? Like those things are dope and you can work them into beats musically and stuff. I just never really took the time. A lot of those sounds are also like pretty bad for you. Not all of them. Some of them are just complicated, and but some of them, like throat bass for example, is bad for your vocal cords. Like there is no getting around it. If you listen to like Rozelle or like any of these like top tier beatboxers like speak, their voices are all shot because they like, not all of them obviously, but it can be a slippery slope. So anyway, I do have a few auxiliary sounds I like to throw into my beats to add a little bit of flavor or dynamics or feeling or whatever. A good one that we kind of touched upon when we were talking about the mouth shapes is just whooshing, like whoosh. Like you're just going whoosh, but without the oosh. Whoosh, right? Or you can even do that on a SH, just an extended shush. Try to shush for like quietly for as long as you can and like grow and fall through it, and you can change your mouth shape and then right? Something like that can be a cool auxiliary thing, like to lead into a beat, or at the end of a beat, you can do a decaying, like people like that kind of thing. If like the, you know, the music kept going after that, or if that's at the end of the song, it's cool to have a little decaying thing over there. Another cool fun sound that's like super easy, but it actually sounds really cool in beats, is just going like like just exhaling, like or right? Sounds weird by itself, but if you put it like at the end of a beat, like right? Oh, awesome. Second show. It's super easy. And this VOD will be available. So I highly encourage you to learn this, because like, honestly, the biggest barrier to entry of beatboxing is the individual person thinking that it's out of their league. It's literally the easiest thing. If you can speak a language, then you can make enough sounds to learn how to functionally beatbox, which is pretty cool. But anyway, so we talked about we talked about as a cool little flavor thing. You can just breathe. You can honestly breathe. You can even do it inward, right? You can do little things like that. You know, I don't want to get too into it, but if you roll your R and then take the voice out of it, then add F, then that's a cool thing. So a rolled R, not everyone can do this, but if you can, you know, if you just held a rolled R for a long time, you get excuse me. So that's a thing, right? You can roll an R. I'm not suggesting that's the sound, but if you take the out of it and try to just do the like the rolled R, you can go from to right? So that's me doing the same mouth shape and, you know, aspirating kind of hard to get the tongue flipping rolled R to happen. Also, if you can't do a rolled R, this might just not be for you. And not beatboxing as a whole. This one sound might be out of your range for right now. But if you take that in itself can be a useful thing. You can put it on kick drums or snares. That's me just going wah, 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 while doing, and then that's and you know, you just combine different sounds together and just mash them together, and then you get creepy, weird effects that can be useful. One other really useful thing, this is a little more useful with snares, is if you take a rolled R inside mouth shape, diagram time. You take a rolled R, so your rolled R is happening around here, right? But if we go to the front of your lips, you could make an F shape while doing a rolled R back here. And if you do that, you get right? Now that's a kind of cool thing. You put it on some snares, it can kind of trick people into thinking you're doing a rolled snare, like a drum roll type thing, like you know, it's kind of misdirection, psychoacoustic effect, whatever you want to call it. You can kind of, your audience may not be, you know, processing everything that you're doing. They're kind of hearing it and then processing it. So you can kind of trick people into thinking you're doing drum rolls that way, which is kind of cool. Yo, Monica, it's a hard one. That's a hard one, but practice makes perfect on this one. So take a rolled R, take out the add a F. It's complicated. It takes time, but getting it down and getting it comfortable will make for easy beat making. Okay, now thank you all for bearing with me through the sounds. I realize we went a little deep there, but we're probably not going to come back to sounds for the rest of our time. We have about an hour left, and we're going to use it for some actual patterns and looking at some video game music examples. And we're going to talk about active listening. You know what? Why don't I just go ahead and bring up the rest of the agenda? Cool. So yeah, we're going to talk about shorthand notation, one that I use, which is this. I'll explain it in a second. We're going to talk about some patterns that are worth identifying and practicing. We're going to talk a little bit about breathing in the context of that as well. And this, I think, is something that I moved to later. Let me scroll down. Yes, it is. So let me get rid of that from this section of the agenda. Cool. So gonna just hydrate a little bit. Highly recommend if you are beatboxing that you drink a lot of water. Don't drink anything with sugar or corn syrup in it. You will probably hurt yourself. I didn't really talk about warming up either, but doing things like hiss for as long as physically possible, then take a quick breath and then hiss for as long as physically possible. Like that's a good way to, stretch out your muscles. You can kind of do lip trills. That's a really good one. That's basically, that's a good one. Take a little bit of water in your mouth, whoosh it around, inhale, or there's a thing I do where you take a little bit of water in your mouth, tilt your head down, push your lips out, and then just inhale. You'll make this water bubbler sound, and it will hydrate your mouth really well. So like, for example, take a little bit of water, tilt your head down, that's a useful thing. It hydrates different areas of your mouth that taking gulps of water doesn't necessarily do. Oh, goodness. I also typically don't actually advise that you talk or sing in between beatboxing because you're using kind of the same parts, but in very different ways. So like, I don't know, talking in between beatboxing, it's not the end of the world, right? Like, I'm doing it, right? People do it. Some people even sing in between beatboxing, and but I suggest as much as you can, try to keep one or the other, right? Otherwise you're going to end up with, like me, super thirsty when you're not even beatboxing yet. All right. Let's talk about this notation. This notation is not necessarily like always the best thing in the world. For me, I think it's a really useful tool because it's super quick to write down. You just do a circle, line, circle, line, circle, line, circle, line, and you can notate the ideas really easily. So basically what I'm looking at is most of the music that you're going to be starting with when you're trying to beatbox is going to be in 4. So what that means is if you're listening to the sound to music, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and you all know what I'm talking about. Most music sounds like that. Not all music, tons of music in other time signatures, but for our purposes, we're just gonna, do this. So basically, these are your downbeats, your heavy beats. These lines are your off beats. I don't usually write out this 1, 2, 3, 4, but if I just draw a circle in a line, or in this case, a diamond in the line, then you can just line everything up. This is monotyped or monospaced font, so everything will line up with the beats as it should. But yeah, it's obviously a lot easier to just do by hand. You can put the things where they need to go. You don't actually need to space them out into where they belong. But anyway, that is the shorthand that I use for notating different beats, different patterns. And yeah, so we are going to see an example of that. We are going to break down boots and cats, which is something that I'm sure many of you have heard before. Oh, you want a beatbox? Just say boots and cats. Actually, real quick, I meant to show this off before. If you don't have this merch yet, I don't know what you're doing. Like, honestly, order it. It's at cost. The VGM Together is not profiting from it, and this is such a sick shirt. So yeah, be on that. But anyway, so boots and cats. People are like, oh, you want a beatbox? Just say boots and cats and boots and cats and boots. And, you can see all of the consonants that we talked about are contained within boots and cats. We got the p, the t, the k, and the t, right? But basically what this pattern is, if I were to line them up, you can see, okay, so if we're going to take it real slow, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and p, t, k, t, p, t, k, t, p. Oh, right, I forgot. You guys can't see my cursor here. So try it with me, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Now that I'm thinking about this, I'm going to whatever. I'll see if I can make it. So what's cool about this notation is you can space things out to the biggest subdivisions you could ever need, right? So what I mean by that is we could, even if we needed to slow it down even further, we could go well, I don't need to actually spell it out. Let me show you what I mean. So this beat here is the same thing as this beat here. It's just twice as fast in how it's written. So in this case, instead of you can't see my cursor, right? Instead of that, it's just notated as right? So hopefully that that makes sense. So one of the strengths of having this notation is if you are conceptualizing, or you have this beat in your head, or you hear this beat in music that is really complex and you can't really get everything to line up unless you count like the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 3 and 3 and 4 and 4 and 4 and 2 and etc. Then you could just add more of that. Oh, well, that's not going to work. You can just add like twice as many of these, right? Well, that's not going to work either. But you get what I'm saying, right? You could stretch it out over as much as you want. So
there it is. Oh, everything.
I thought I turned off my alerts. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm sorry, mods. You asked me to turn my alerts off and I thought they were. I'm sorry, Doug. I'm sorry, Nidge. I'm sorry, Video Game Music Together. I'm really sorry. I thought I took care of that. Anyway, so now let's try this beat together real quick. But first, let's talk about, but Boz, if I just keep trying this beat, I'm going to run out of breath. So what I would suggest is, so three things are worth knowing, short sounds. So if you keep your sounds kind of as short as possible, kind of how I was talking about, like keep the aspiration, like the breathing out of your sounds as short as possible. One of the reasons why that's useful is while your mouth is doing that, you can breathe in through your nose, which is, it takes a little getting used to, but if you're not going right, then you could go right. You don't need to breathe that much. That was a little intense there, but you get what I'm saying, I hope. Like if you're not for you musicians, if you're not legato, you're keeping it staccato, then you got time in between your sounds to get a quick, small inhale through your nose. And habitualizing that and practicing it will make those muscles kind of work automatically. So that's one thing that I highly recommend, trying to achieve. Secondly, understanding the beat that you are working on, or that you are trying to execute. I would argue that there's a hierarchy of percussive elements. This should not be like this. I'm sorry. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Boom. There we go. There we go. That makes a lot more sense. So, knowing what you can and cannot sacrifice in order to maintain the rhythmic identity of your beat. What I'm basically trying to say is, so Boots and Cats, technically, like if I was a drum machine, then I would just infinitely, every single one of these eighth notes or little subdivisions we have in here would be occupied by a sound. Forever. But I can't do that because I'm a human being. I got to breathe at some point, right? So know what you can and cannot sacrifice. Never sacrifice a snare that is like fundamental to the beat that you are trying to execute. If you get rid of the snare, there will be a noticeable lapse to the people you're playing with and your audience because everyone expects it, right? Now, of course, getting rid of a snare that people are expecting is a technique you can use for its own effect, but for the sake of breathing, you don't want to get rid of a snare. You similarly don't want to get rid of a kick, right? Kick drum, not as crucial. If you miss one, but your snares are still in there, people will still probably be able to keep tempo. But the kick is also really, really important to the rhythmic identity of different beats. I would say hi-hats and auxiliary sounds, know where they are in the beat, and then just know, hey, if something needs to go, if I'm feeling tired, I need to tank up on air, that's where I'm breathing. That's where I'm doing it. Sorry, hi-hats, but I got to breathe. Another thing is just like that's kind of just like a cheat sheet. Obviously, every beat may have its own, scenarios and circumstances where it's like, no, that kick is like iconic to the foundation of how this feels. And it's like, okay, don't cut that kick. Just kind of knowing the part and knowing like what's kind of important to make it feel the way that it feels by listening to it and familiarizing yourself is kind of how to know where to breathe. And if you just want like a cheat, just breathe on the and of 4. So what I mean by that is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, right? I realize I didn't talk about these, but I don't really need to. If we get to it, we'll get to it later. So now that we've talked about it, I've notated this little apostrophe above where we should breathe. Another thing is kind of recognizing for this beat, okay, if I were to mark all of the kicks and hi-hats with a line here just to know where I should not breathe, these are the places. So these are kind of the pivotal points to the like feel of this beat. That's where the kick and the snares happen, right? The more important ones, obviously, as we talked about, the snare. Can I bold a diamond? No, I cannot, but I can underline it. So the snare there is the most thing. So if people just heard that would have some feel. If they heard they'd have more of it. If you get it's the whole thing, right? But yeah, that's kind of you want to prioritize in that way. So now that I've talked a ton more, let's try Boots and Cats together. All right, so I'll do it once and then I'll count us in and we'll do it together, right? So we're gonna go. right? So just breathe on any of these hi-hats. You know what I mean? Breathe wherever there's a hi-hat. But if you can get in the habit of breathing on the and of 4, that'll be extra cool. So, all right. So I don't know here. Why don't I try this? How can I can make it smaller. That's what I'll do. Hopefully you guys can still understand now that we've talked about it. It doesn't need to be as big. I want to make sure that I can keep in time with us. So, okay, there we go. So, okay, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, that was too fast. So 1, 2, 3, 4. No, wow. What is wrong with me? It's because I'm trying to click at a different time. So we're going to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All right. Great job, everybody. Great job, everybody. Yeah, so that's Boots and Cats. The reason why this is such a useful place to start for so many people is because most music, not all music, but a lot of songs, even if the actual drum part is completely different, if you do Boots and Cats over it, it will sound correct enough that you can jam with it. So let's please, for the love of all that is good, let's take an example. We're going to take some VVV music, and we're going to Boots and Cats with it. Okay? So I'll play it, and then I will Boots and Cats with it. I urge you to try along at home and just breathe on the and of 4 or anywhere there's a hi-hat. Or you know what? If you need to breathe somewhere else, just breathe it. But honestly, just try this. Try this with me. I think you will enjoy it. Here is what we're going to do. Pushing onwards. 2, 3, 4. I cheated a little bit. I changed the snare sounds a couple times in there, and I also added an extra kick at the very end there. But what's cool about these beats is even though Boots and Cats is technically, you could swap out the kick for a, you could swap out the snare. And another thing is if you want to practice, you could do Boots and Cats double time to what we just did on the same song to practice, executing them with less intensity and going for more of the quiet, try to work on the agility side of it. And we'll talk a little bit more about bringing down your louds so that you can get more agility and not run out of breath so fast. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but let's try double time on that. So now we're going to go. All right. So what we just did, you can do with many, many, many songs of various tempos. You can do a slow Boots and Cats. You can do a fast Boots and Cats. I recommend doing that. It's simple. It's not a lot, but it will get the muscles working and kind of get you a little more comfortable. And I would, some people in chat might roast me for this, but I would not recommend doing this with a metronome. I would not. I would suggest doing it with music, because both will be accurate with their time. However, if you do it with the music, you will start getting in the habit of passively listening and understanding how the drums fit in with the other parts, which is going to be a big thing we're going to talk about later. But yeah, I recommend practicing with actual music more than I do with metronome. There are, of course, specific cases where you will want to practice with a metronome, but I think for me, 95%. I would say 1 out of 20 times I've needed to practice something in particular, having music has been better than a metronome. But anyway, one more example of Boots and Cats. This one's going to be a little faster, but I feel like I'd get in trouble if I didn't have some Toby Fox in here. So here's some Deltarune. We're going to do the same exercise. Try it at home with me if you can. This one's faster. I'm going to go twice as fast now. So now, one of the reasons that works so well is because that beat is the actual beat at that part, especially if I throw it back a little bit. The dude's hammering on the snare drum. Right? Now, I'm not saying do that, but if you notice, that is very much like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Those are the important beats. And would you look at that? When we identify the important beats here, they were also on 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's why it works so well. You know what? Actually, we should probably talk about a thing that's even simpler than Boots and Cats. They literally call it 4 on the floor. And it's so simple. It's literally just a kick drum on every beat. You can definitely do this in every song. And that is also a good exercise. But Boots and Cats is just a little bit better. It just takes a little more out of you, you know. But it's the same thing. It's just focusing on those 4 beats, the downbeats. And I guess I shouldn't have used the same symbol. I'm going to use an X. Oh, that's going to be confusing now. I'm sorry, everybody. Should have thought this through in advance. But anyway, 4 on the floor beats are not all empty in between, each downbeat, but they all have that kind of identity. But like you could hear something like, that's still a 4 on the floor beat because it's got the. But anyway, because this. The songs that I played were all very downbeat heavy. They work really well with Boots and Cats. Even songs that are not downbeat heavy will work with Boots and Cats if they're in 4/4 most of the time, right? But let's take it. Let's start to switch it up a little bit. Let's not just focus on the downbeats. Let's get like a rockin' beat. Let's get some rock up in here. Let's get some Sonic up in here. Can we get some Sonic? Some Sonic the Hedgehog up in here? I think we can. Anyway, first let me break down this beat a little bit. So if we're looking at this, you'll notice in this case, I'm occupying the snare with the letter P. It's technically like PSH, but if I write that, it's not going to look right. So I know P means snare. So I'm going to use the letter P. And I highly recommend, if you think S makes more sense, then in your notation, you can write the letter S. And anyway, so most actual drummers, which I am not, by the way, but most actual drummers will know what I'm talking about when I say every person who learns drums learns this one rock beat in particular when they first start. And it's right. And if we break that down into the actual elements that matter, so sorry, all elements matter, but the rhythmic elements that matter the most. Okay, we got a kick drum there, got a snare there, we got some. Oh, that's not a downbeat. Oh ho! So this is. Those are the important beats, and I did the vertical line again instead of the X because I am an amateur. But anyway, the way that this beat works is it's going to be. Oh, whoops. Let me. That last one was not in time, sorry. But yeah, so it's a similar beat, but it's a little different because we're not only focusing on the downbeats. You can see now it's the first downbeat, second downbeat, the and of 3, and then the downbeat, right? So if we were to take something we learned earlier, which is that is easier than we could even do a beat like, oh no, what did I do? Holding the wrong button. So like 1, 2, 3, and right? And then I chose to breathe on the and of 4, but you could even fill it with a hi-hat. So that's the beat that we're going to be hearing something similar to, not exactly the same, because the actual drummers for Sonic Music Team are, they're not going to do something that simple. There's a lot more going on, but you will hear the rhythmic identity of the beat they're doing at the beginning of Seaside Hill is very similar. So I'm going to play that, and we're going to try doing this beat, which has, less hi-hats, or this one, which has the tick-tick. We'll try either, or we'll just try. So what that would be is, if we just look at the important beats here, so no, I'm off. Right? So yeah, I think it'll be clearer once I start playing the example, but let's take it to Seaside Hill real quick. Obviously, at the end, I was not doing the rock beat, but you keep the rhythmic identity of this beat in general in your head. You know where the inflection points are. Then you can kind of like, fill in the gaps how you want. That's kind of what you'll build to by familiarizing yourself with not, oh, I'm going to do the beat from Seaside Hill. It's, oh, this is a pretty common rock pattern, right? I hear things like this in all sorts of different types of music. So stuff like that. And we could even take that beat, let's take it to Let's take it to the world revolving. It won't sound as good, but if we did. You get it? It's like you want to learn these beats and then hear them in other types of music. So now we've talked about some downbeat heavy music, right? We're about to switch it up to this thing for the longest time, and like through now and through forever. This one rhythm is so powerful. You don't even know. Like, actually, maybe you do. Most of you are really, really musical people. But this one rhythm is unbelievable. The inflection points for it are, so if I were to, let me just copy this. Oh no, there we go. The inflection points for this are 1, the and of 2, and 4. And if you think of it as 3 things, you'll see it's 1, 1, 1, right? So if you were to count forward from them, you'd see it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, right? Now, I don't know what to call it. I call it 3-3-2. It's so powerful, common, useful, and good that I think just calling it 3-3-2 is sufficient. I'm sure that like different musical cultures have different names for this rhythm, but 3-3-2 does it for me. Switching from a beat that has a pulse that focuses on downbeats into something like this, into a 3-3-2 type focus, is such a common hype technique. Like when you hear that in like music across the board, like pop music does it a lot. Like, there are a lot of different musical styles, non-American ones in particular, that really benefit a lot from this rhythm. So before I show you how powerful that change up is, let's try this beat together. You can find power in 3-3-2 with any sounds. You could just do snare drums. You could do 2 kicks and a snare. We're going to do 2 kicks and a snare to start, but it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and right? And what I was doing there was just essentially filling in this with a hi-hat. Oops. And this with a hi-hat, and this with a hi-hat, and then breathing here, right? I like doing an apostrophe for breathing because I used to be a cello player. And, for lifts and stuff, you would see that often, I guess. Maybe it's been a while, but I've always associated apostrophes with breathing. So that's what I'm putting in for there. But anyway, so if I were to go from rock to 3-3-2, right? And sorry, this can also be notated. I should probably indicate that another way of thinking about this is well, you can do it twice as fast. I guess I don't need to actually write it out like this. Maybe I should. But if like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah. So you could also see it written out like this. So like it's a little harder to visualize because you're going into the subdivisions a little bit, but it can be, you could have instead of right? That's probably obvious to most of you, but it's if you switch from something like this into something like this, which is just a sped up version of this, then you could have an effect that's like, right? So yeah, anyway, that's the power of 332. If you were to steal or remember anything from this, it would be swapping from a straight beat to 332 will blow people's minds, even though it's the easiest thing in the world. It's hype every time. Let's listen to an example of a rhythm that has the same structure, the same format as 332, but in this case, there's actually no hard-hitting beat on beat 1. It's just the and of 2 and and of 4, but you can still practice a 332 with it, which is what we're going to do. So the beginning of Family Jewel's cover of Vega has a good example of this. Vega's theme from Street Fighter, of course. Not yet. All right, listen. Here it comes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Right? So let's try that again together. It's a short section, but yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You can kind of hear it in there, right? So let's try the. Right? So we'll try that right now. Intro's going to be a little louder, but then we'll get into it. Right? So yeah, so that's an example of where you can use 332. However, again, literally you can take these patterns and put them on anything. So we'll take it back to C-side. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Honestly, just thinking through that, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. When you're listening to songs that don't have that beat, will expand your options so much. There's just, I love 332. There's just so much power in it. We're going to draw out another example from Family Jewels. I have just about half an hour left. Halftime. So if this has emphasis on every downbeat, this one only has emphasis on the first and second downbeat. So bam, 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 bam. So that an example would be, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so this one's a little hard to understand just by itself, but if you were to take Boots and Cats and then go into this, it would be and actually, let me go ahead. I'll fill in all of these dashes with hi-hats so we can really count it out together. But it's the difference between every ba, 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 and ba, off, 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 right? So to do that again, and I'll fill in the hi-hats for dubstep. When I give the thumbs up, that's when we're flipping, all right? right? So that is halftime. A lot of people also, loop it in with dubstep. It's a very common technique for drops in dubstep music. And if you see what's down here, we've obviously talked about how when you identify the main focal areas of the beat, you can fill in the other stuff how you want. So one common thing that you'll hear in a lot of halftime dubstep builds is it'll start with a single kick and then emptiness and then a snare. But then, we're putting in one kick in between them. This is every downbeat. And then, we're putting in kicks in between everything. So like, there'd be like, I can't do this in real time, but yeah. Right? Like you can just step, but I'm filling everything with as much as I could possibly want as long as I'm still maintaining the step, right? Switching to halftime is absolute fire. So we're gonna look at an example of that from hey, what up, Raiders? Thank you, Jer. We're gonna look at an example from the same Family Jewels Vega arrangement. This part's a little bit louder, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit. And we'll take it from 44 seconds. So it's going to start with a straight beat, and then I'll wave or do something frantic when it goes to halftime. Let's just listen to what's going on here. This is Seaside Hill. So he went back to the straight time right after that. But basically, I was trying to indicate kick, snare, right? So at the beginning, it's a straight beat, but then when it cuts off, it's, oh, nope, here's the snare. It's actually on beat 3 now, not where you were expecting it. It's like, half as fast now. So let's go through that one more time to understand that. I'll beatbox and try not to be too loud over it. Kick drum, snare drum. Right? So, it's a fairly simple thing. You don't even have to do it for a long time. You throw in a little bit of that halftime, everyone's like, oh my God. It's really hype. It's really hype. If you can build up to a good halftime drop, people will like that a lot. So, okay. So those are kind of, we've covered a lot of different patterns, but those are examples of different types of beats to start trying to hear in the music that you like, right? So we should talk about active listening a little bit. Now, one thing I will say is right off the bat, what you should do is songs, all of you, every single person in here has songs that they like and songs that make them feel something, right? All of you have that, right? So we don't even need to find any particular song. Listen to those songs and just try to isolate the percussion. Like, listen to those songs and specifically listen for the drums or whatever other percussive elements there are throughout the entire song, front to back. Get familiar with it, right? You will pick up so many patterns that we haven't talked about, patterns that are unique to different games, patterns, all sorts of stuff. Listening for the drums is, we did it. We did it in a lot of these cases. Most of those beats that we came from, I showed the examples after the fact, but if we had been listening to those songs, we could have boiled it down to those elements, right? And so first you want to start listening to the drums so you can get awareness of what's going on in this song. then you will get familiar with it. Like, oh yeah, I know what's happening already. And then once you've listened to it enough, or you've kind of understood it fully, it will become instinctual to you. It'll just be like I don't think about things like, oh, this is a rock beat, or like, oh, I should switch to 3-3-2 next. I kind of like, it just kind of happens if I'm like freestyling or like, you know, coming up with a part. You won't need to think through all these motions once you've set up the framework and you understand it, right? So yeah, you can also, you know, I would say most people who are, I mean, not everyone, there are a lot of percussionists, but like most people don't necessarily listen to drums, right? So start with that. However, you can pick up cool rhythms from any of the instruments in a track. So we are going to take an example. We are going to listen to a song from Final Fantasy VII Remake. This one is called Darkness something. Darkness ahead. So you could, and I'm sure many of you are talented enough to do so, you could listen to that and break down the actual drums. But when I listen to that, the thing that stands out to me so much is you know, that bum 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 ba da da bum, right? That you know the one. In the strings and stuff. Da 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 da. Okay, cool. So now that I've heard that a bunch of times and I've listened to the song a few times, I know that it goes da 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 da. Cool, right? So now if I slow that down, because I know it, da 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 da, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2, right? Now, I know that already, but if I slowed it down, or if I was just listening to it, I could just go really fast, right? So like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1. Right? But you feel me? Like you probably wouldn't actually, you know, count that out loud, but in your head you can do that very easily because you don't actually need to say it, right? So thinking through it, like breaking down the subdivisions, for me, I know that that's going to be four things that are 3 long. So 1 2 3 1 2 3. Oh, I guess I should 1 2 3. No, let's do 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2, right? Sorry, I know my scrolling wasn't perfect, but you can understand it's okay. It's four groups of 3 and then ba ba. So now I know these are the inflection points. So I could fill this with kick drums, ba 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 pa pa. I could do that. I could do something like ba 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 ba. But yeah, identifying this is just where those big orchestra hits were, right? And now it's a cool rhythm that we can use in other places, right? So let's try to conceptualize this one together. So it's 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 ba 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 ba. X X X Y Y X X X X Y Y, right? So okay. So let's try that together with kick drums, and then we'll do K. So it'll be. So I'll do hi-hats in between them. So what it'll sound like, you just try to hit the kicks and the snares. I'll do hi-hats as well. So what you'll hear from me is. And you do the. All right, let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, and. Nice. A little bit faster. Right? You with me? That one's a little harder. If we try that exact thing with the actual song, it's faster, but you don't have to do all the hi-hats in between. Let's focus on getting the. Right? Let's try that together on the same one that we were hearing. Another thing is probably for people who have trained on instruments or actual sheet music, it's, 4 dotted quarter notes and then 2 quarter notes in a 2-bar phrase, right? That's what this is. But knowing that, hearing that, y'all a little bit more familiar with that rhythm. Ba 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 cha cha ba 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 cha cha, right? You guys feel me a little bit? Now, with that rhythm in our head, let's take a little bit more of a popular Final Fantasy VII song, and maybe we can apply this to that. So you can hear it's the same rhythm. Right? So it's cool. This rhythm from da 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 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 is the same as 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2. Right. Oh man, I just want to jam with all this great music. I'm sorry, but yeah. So that's kind of an example of how you could even take, non-percussive rhythms and glean something useful as a beatboxer to apply to other songs. So to recap on active listening, pick songs that I should probably write this down. It's too important. So listen to songs listen to the percussion in songs you like, identify the way you feel and how the percussion helps achieve that. I think that's an important thing that oftentimes gets glossed over with teaching music, which is it's really all about emotions and feeling, and like, having a good sense for like, musicality is oftentimes the same thing as just being in touch with emotions and how to achieve them, how to represent them. And so if you have a song that you identify with, oh, this song gets me pumped up, or, oh, this song really, I like to listen to it when I'm sad, it makes me introspective. You take that song, you listen to it, you already know it. So you listen to it, you listen specifically to the drums. You're like, oh yeah, I guess the drums were doing that at that part. Oh, that's pretty triumphant when they do the crash on beat 1. Maybe I could do that in, similar situations. Getting that kind of awareness and familiarity between like how different percussive, techniques or patterns or whatever can achieve different emotions is how you'll be able to write your own parts and kind of, grow that familiarity. All right. So now we can talk a little bit more about expanding on your sounds after I hydrate. All right. Thanks, second show. How to learn new sounds. And I think a lot of you probably didn't learn everything that I explained at the beginning. So you can try these techniques for yourself. So in my opinion and my experience, the steps to learning a new sound is, first, you have to conceptualize it. You need to imagine this is what the sound sounds like, or this is the function that the sound achieves, or I want to make a K snare that I can pitch. Some sort of loose conceptualization. Me breaking down a sound that I use, or you hearing a sound that someone else uses, is another way to conceptualize the sound, right? Next, once you've thought about what you want this sound to achieve, you want to try it. You want to try making that sound. And you will probably get it wrong a bunch, right? This get it once phase, takes a long time. But you want to get it right once, right? You try, for me, it was an inward snare. So making the click K snare mouth shape and then breathing in to make a sound. And for me, the longest I was like, couldn't do it, right? And then eventually I got it once. Oh, I got it once. And then I didn't get it again for like 1,000 times, but I got it once. So I moved from phase 1, conceptualizing it, to phase 2. This is huge. This takes a long time. But once you get it once, you're like pretty much in the clear. The hardest part has been achieved, because then you just want to improve your success rate at getting it on demand. So first, I got it right once after trying it 5 billion times. And then it took me 1,000 attempts to get it right the second time. Now I'm going to try another 1,000 times. Oh, snap. I got it right at 800 this time. And then I'm not obviously keeping track of the counts. But what I'm saying is, you keep practicing it, you'll get to a point where, oh, every other time I try to attempt this sound, I get it right. Oh, snap, now it's the majority of times. And then eventually you understand what do I need to get the sound out 100% of the time. Once you have that, you are here, right? And you get it always, and that is officially part of your kit. Now, you can attempt to do sounds that you're not 100% on. It's a good way to, grow in actual beats. You can try things. But for me personally, I always try to have like a majority success rate before working something into my kit. Okay, now let's talk about how we can actually mess with the sounds. Also, we got about 6 minutes left, so I just want to make sure I make this abundantly clear. Y'all probably have questions because I've been talking wicked fast. That's where to hit me up if you do have questions. But now, once you have a sound always, now you can start messing with it. And now I'm going to take you to the graph, which is, anyone who's studied with me before knows this thing and probably hates it. So y'all all know what a graph is. Y'all all know what a graph is. The y-axis, so the up-down arrow, is pitch in this case, so how high or low something is, and the x-axis is volume, right? So when you learn a sound, and all of you did this today, all of you learned how to do, let's take the kick drum. Actually, yeah, we'll start with the kick drum. Okay? So the kick drum, letter B. I ask you to do a kick drum right now. 3, 2, 1. All right, what you did naturally as your kick drum, that is the middle of your axis right now, right? Now, what you can do, and this applies to all of your sounds, is you can slowly walk them down this axis. So, okay, I want to try going as quiet as I can with my kick drum. So I'm going to drag my kick. I'm going to pretend this purple drum is, this purple dot is my kick drum. We start here. Oh my God. So okay. Obviously this range, not very functional. However, practicing going up and down the volume axis is how you will build the muscles to be able to do louder versions naturally. And also understanding the quieter element is how you will be able to conserve your stamina when you are getting out of breath or tired from beatboxing for a long time, right? You can just lower how loud you're going and still achieve the same effect, right? So other things you could do is, if we take a boom, we can right. Now, obviously, down here, up here, not super useful or functional, but practicing the range will give more versatility, and it kind of, gives you more things to play with. I could drop something over here to make more emphasis. If I wanted a kick drum to be punchier, I could make it louder and deeper, or louder and less deep. You can apply this to airy sounds too, like the k, for example. If we took a KH snare that's high pitched and high volume, and a little bit less of each, a little bit less of each, a little bit less of each, right? You can even plot like lines on this. You can decay, you can, right? You can do things like that. And that is how, imagining each sound not as a static sound, but as a dynamic array of high-pitched, high-volume sounds, high-pitched, low-volume sounds, low-pitched, low-volume sounds, low-pitched, high-volume sounds. Any sound that you've learned, you don't need to learn a billion sounds. You take one sound, you mess with the mouth shape, you mess with the placement on this graph, you maybe send it in a direction. You can add a ton of dynamic to your kit just with what we got, So yeah. What else? No way we get this far, but questions? No, we're not going to do questions. Questions, you can hit me up on Discord, because I'm not going to look at the chat right now. I need to take these last 2 minutes to thank you all for bearing with me and being here. I hope you all try this. It's really, really, really easy to do and achieve. I want to just, again, real quickly thank everyone who is associated with VGM Together on the planning side. You all did this for this community, and no one paid you for it. It was stressful. It was a lot, I'm sure. And you guys put together one of the most incredible events, and I'm honored to be here. And I know everybody who's been here has been having the time of their life. You could see it with the 800, maybe a little plus or give or take, 800 people checking out the concert last night. Line them up. That's something. And everyone who's just attending, please hold it in your heart to thank these people, because they really, really just did it for the love of video game music and this community. And That's awesome. And I'm really honored to be a part of it here. Again, you can @ me in the VGM Together Discord if you have questions. If you want to check out my beatboxing, I do that on twitch.tv/swag_fam on most Sundays. But yeah, we are at time and I'm not going to go over. So thank you all again so much. Peace.
Must be bananas. Last time I was this deep, I got the worst case of bends ever in history. When I dive below into the depths, get so deep, lose sense of myself. So I gotta push through like Randy. Andy doesn't hesitate with his choices like Stanley. Mine charts in oceans of trees, sunshine and tropical freeze. I get a whiff of manners on the breeze.
I beat my chest with pride the time I saw Senpai jamming out at Magfest with Dave Wise. A fiery furnace on a ghostly groove. Eye candy Kong looking like a king K. Rool. IQ is cool and Kadesh can flow. Nerdcore ninja slaying zingers like it's Hornet's hole and smack. Oh my damn, this is gold bananas. I needed my cut, man, so I ran to Samus.
I could be wrong, but my palate DK got enough soul for the whole Congo. Any day I can get value from replay. Down in my blood we play a slow rondo. Loopy lights, manicky nights, bad trips like Funky's last flight. What would I give just to go diving off the coast of Destiny Island?
When I'm lost in a world of darkness, I just look left to the symbol on my arm. It's a glimmer of hope in abyss so arctic. It wakes me up like espresso the ostrich. I got this. I'm not Loch Ness, more like Lockjaw. If she's squawking in my locker, then on guard. A wink of sleep heals my rattled mind, so I'll go head first, man. Randy the Rhino.
One hard fact is Disco Cactus got where they got on account of hard practice. I'll try, we'll get by, and everything will click clack in time. Just you and me, it's a co-op. Some are bound to hate it, yes, so what? Excuse me, I don't mean to brag. You know the crew, we go by Geek Swag. So you must be bananas. You must be.
You gotta be.